Welcome back to the channel. We're talking about using what's called the open source Firebase alternatives. Link below for more information about it and see the previous two videos that we've had. What our focus is going to be in this video is, in the last video we created the screens for login, create account, and forgot password. And now what we're going to do is we're going to implement all the functionality to support this inside of our data service file, which we've discussed. So here's where we're isolating all the functions that interact with supabase. So let's get started with the first one. Let's get started with login. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of break this out as a section so I can find it easily. Authentication. And here's where we're going to add the functions that we know we need. So we know we're going to need, let's just start with them, const HasUser. We know we're going to need a login and a logout and a create user. Those are pretty basic functions that you need very often. Like I said, we're specifically using supabase. You can use anything else. The interface that we're creating is pretty standard, so if you want to just swipe out supabase and put something else in there, everything should be fine. So like I said, we have our login. No, we haven't done login yet, but let's start there. So we have our HasUser, our login. Let's keep this simple. Just kind of paste as much as we can. Login. We have our logout. We are going to have our create user. Login, logout. Let's call it create account. Create account. Forgot password. OT. EASSWORD. Login, logout, create login, logout, create account. I think change password is the one that I want because that's the call. So first we need the one, so we have forgot password. So yes, I think change password is the last one. Forgot password. And then change password is how you actually are going to update the user object with the new password. So this is change password, not with capital. We're going to keep that lowercase. And then I just import something. No. And then all we need for here is just the password. And all we need for forgot password is just the email. And that's all we need. Okay. And then, oh yeah, everybody's complaining because they need to be returned. So let's make sure at the bottom we return them all. Forgot password, change password, log out, log in, and create account. And then let's kind of separate these. Okay. HasUser has been signed invalid, never use emails. All right, so it's starting to complain about all these guys. And because it is going to complain I'm going to start off all of these by just console logging out the parameters. So we're just going to do this. So we know everybody's happy in the beginning. Console log email password, copy. Console log email password, copy. Console log email password. Console log email. Console log password. All right, who's not happy? HasUser assigned a value but is never used. Let me HasUser back down here. Okay. All right, everybody's happy. Let's kind of format this, and then let's get at it. So to get at it, let's get back to our supabase documentation. Let me slide this over here so you guys can see where I'm coming from. Let me make sure. Okay. I'm going to zoom this in a bit so y'all can read it. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with, we need to implement this on-auth state change. For those coming from Firebase, that should be helpful. And basically what we're going to use this for is determine when we're signing in or out, when the authentication state, i.e. when the authentication state is changed. And then also we're going to leverage this auth session to determine if I actually have a user or not. What's interesting is that when I was going through this, which if someone who knows more than me gave me the answer, the session gives me a bunch of information and the user, and the the auth user gives me back just a user. And so the question is it good enough to check for just a user, or do I need to have to also check for the session? For now, I'm just checking for the whole session, and that's what I'm doing. If it's not right, let me know. So let's get to it. And so what we want to do is we want to have the same behavior you kind of seen before, where when the application starts up, you check and see if there's an existing user. So we're going to create a function called initialize, and we're going to put that information. What we're going to do is when I instantiate this object, I'm going to call the initialize function. Okay, and what will happen is that it will check to see if we have a user or not. And so since this is the same way we want to keep track of this product list and display information, everything, we want to keep track of the user/session information. So we're going to define that outside here so it can kind of be consistent for all instances of this. So it's complaining about session not being used. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create our initialize function. Okay, we're going to put it right up at the top so it's clear what's happening. So let's put our initialize function right here at the top. And then, so it's called when the data service first loaded to initialize the session, also sets a listener to update the session based on changes in the auth state. So we saw the function from as it was set up inside the original documentation. And so what we're going to do is, when we first set up, we're going to try to get a session value, but then we're also going to listen for any changes to the session. So we're using our client, using the auth API, get the session, set our local session value, and then also for any auth state changes, we're going to update the session value. And what we're going to do now with that session value, we're going to leverage that for our HasUsers, right? Because if I have a session value, then I have a user. So let's just use that as the way we determine if we have a user or not. So let's go down. Where did I create my has? Here's my HasUser function. And this is all it is. If I have a session, if my session value does not equal null, then I have a user. It is what it is. So let's let this rip and see what we get inside of our router now that we actually have that function. So let's go back to my router. I'm already getting it out. So this is the time to show some debugging stuff. So let's get to the developer tools. Pull this over to the side. I think we got a little bit of room to spare with my editor. Let's pull my editor over here. And let's just console log HasUser. Oh, I left some breakpoints in here. Let's get these breakpoints out of here. Let's run this again. That's not what I want. I want the actual result of it. So I do not have a user right now. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's going to the right direction. Now earlier I created a user in my account, so just so we can see the difference, I'm just going to log in with that user. Actually, I can't log in with that user because I haven't added the login function yet. So let's go up and add the login function. So this guy, we're going to follow the exact same model that we did from here. We're going to pull it off of the data service. So we go into use login. We have our router. Let's go here, and we're going to say login. But we need to import that first. So import data service from data service. Error login is not a value but never used. So we're going to actually use it in here. So we can remove the alert. Let's just change this to a console log for debugging. And then this is async, so we need to await the result of the login attempt. So, okay, let's get this right. So we've broken out our email and password. Let's attempt to log in. Where am I? I'm in my user login, so yeah. Let's attempt to log in. Let's attempt our login, and then we will log in using email and password. We'll get back an error or a user. And then what we're going to do, if I get back a user, then transition or go to the home route. If I don't get a user, then we're going to throw whatever error that we got back, and we're going to render the error message. So if there's no user, then throw the error message. All right. Does that make sense? So if I get back an error, then boom. If I get back a user, then go home. And then since we're throwing errors, and just to be good developers, we should be looking for errors. So let's wrap this whole thing in a try catch, like we did earlier, catch E. And then we'll clean up these alerts later to use the Ionic alerts. We will just display an alert with the error message. Okay, let's put a little bit of space in there. Let's go back to, I don't think we actually implemented the login. Let's go to data service. We're going to do very much the same thing we did here inside of data service. So let's go down to my authentication. All right, we have our do login, and inside of my do login, we are going to call the supabase function for login. It's actually, they actually call it sign in. So let's use their words for sign in. So take the email and password that was provided, and you call sign in with it. And then what we're going to do is we're not going to actually do anything with it inside of this function. We're just going to pass back whatever we get from the call. So let's kind of clean this up a bit. And so these are bad emails and passwords. So let's see what we get. I guess I do have a user with those credentials. Did I create a user? Let's see. Yeah, I didn't realize that I created a user with those credentials. So I did create a user, and it logged me in. So it did what it was supposed to do. Let's see. Let me kind of blow this up a bit so you guys can see down here that it signed me in. It gave me this user object, which is the email address and password that was set aside there, and it provides all the session information. And so I didn't implement logout. So let me put logout in somewhere so that we can show how to log in again. So where are we gonna put? Well, first, let's implement the logout function, so we have that ready to go once we have the logout. It's the exact same way as we did before. So for logout, we really don't need any parameters past the logout. So let's remove those. We're going to use our client. We're going to call the auth signout function. We are going to do just as we did with login. If there's any errors, we're going to log them, but we're just going to return the user and the error. So, but now I need, see how it's just logging me back in automatically, because it is, let's go back to my data service. It's calling the initialize at startup. The initialize is setting my session value. The session value is what HasUser uses. Where is it? HasUser. And then when I go into router.js, and we try to hit a path, it says, yes, I have a user, which is this true. And so then it renders to whatever route the person wants to go to, which is this next. And so that's why we're still coming here. We're going to add the logout on the bottom to, so I can show you login again. So let's go to our home page. There's not really a nice place to add this, so we're just going to throw it. We're just going to throw it in the footer, I guess. That makes sense. Yeah, let's throw it in the footer. So we're going to come down in the footer before the end of the page. We are going to create a button, log out. We're going to call a function called doLogout, which it's complaining because it says, well, first I don't have ion footer in here, so ion footer is the import. Ion footer, add the footer in there. So now we have our logout, but I don't think, yeah, so let's add it here. Log, so I'm getting my logout function, my data service, and I don't have a doLogout function, so let's just throw it down here. Const doLog. Out, and then let's return doLogout. So that error logout is signed a value but never used. All right, yes, hold on a second. We will get to using the logout function. So what we want to do is, it's pretty straightforward. We are going to call the logout function. So let's say await log out. And then after the logout's complete, we're not going to worry about errors or anything. After logout's done, you're just going to go. So we just say logout place, and we're going to go back to login. Okay. Yeah, what's it complaining about? Can I use keyword await outside of it? All right, let's add async. Okay. So here's my logout. So it's logged me out. See, I signed out. So I got my sign out event. There's no user anymore. The user set to false. But what I wanted to do was show you how we handle the errors. So let's do this. So no user found with this email. So we're getting the emails done. And let's see if I don't put a password on. I don't know why it stopped there. So no password. I guess I need to put some better check in there because email password. Why am I? It's not throwing an error on no password. Interesting. But if I just enter an email and the email is not confirmed, it says email not concerned, but it won't log me in. Interesting. That's something else I need to look in, because I would have assumed it would complain if I attempt to log in without a password. Oh, I know what it's doing. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So quickly to explain to you, basically what the API does is if you attempt to log in with just an email, it sends a magic link. I can talk about that more in later in the video because we're not covering it now, but that's what's happening. It's trying to send a magic link to this email address for me to use the magic link to log in with. That's not what we're trying to do. But let's go back to this A account because there is, and you can see how we log in and then we can log out. Let's do one last thing. I think we can squeeze in create account in this video, and then we can handle forgot password in the next video. No, let's stop here because we covered a bunch of stuff. So we covered login and logout. So if we're in, let's go back to the data service. So in our data service, we added our initialization at the top. We initialized everything and got our session value. We're saving our session value. Then we go down here for our HasUser verification. We're using the session value. We have our login and our logout functions. So actually what I'm going to do for my login is I am going to, no, I'll worry about it later. So we have our login function, we get the credentials, we log in, we pass them back, we have our logout function. And then if we go to my login page, user login, we pull the credentials, we console log what we got, we call the login function if I have a user, then I go to home. If I don't have a user, or if I have an error, I throw the error and give the alert message. And then in my home view, I added the logout, my do logout. I call the logout function. After I log out, I go back to the login page. I'm going to wrap it there. Next video, we're going to kind of follow the same pattern. We will add the create account functionality and the forgot password functionality first to our data service. And then after we add it to the data service, we'll integrate it in our UI. So we'll actually do something with this information, allow you to call create account to create account and log the person in. And then also we will add the functionality for forgot password. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you on the next time. Please make sure you like and subscribe.